asampanna iva bhati brahmavarchasya sattamaha tathapi batamedhyehyo hya atma chaivatmana vibhu asampanna iva bhati brahmavarchasya sattamaha Tathapi, although, bata, defect, me, mine, daihyo, situated in the body, he, certainly, atma, living being, cha, and, eva, even, Atmana, myself, Vibhu, sufficient, Asampannaha, wanting in, Iva bhati, it appears to be, Brahmavarchasya, of the Vedantists, Sattamaha, the Supreme. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Translation. I am feeling incomplete, though I myself am fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas. Purport. Undoubtedly, Srila Vyasadeva was complete in all the details of Vedic achievements. Purifications of the living being submerged in the matter is made possible by the prescribed activities in the Vedas. But the ultimate achievement is different. Unless it is attained, the living being, even though fully equipped, cannot be situated in the transcendentally normal stage. Srila Vyasadeva appeared to have lost the clue and therefore felt dissatisfaction. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijanasahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabho Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So very soon we are going to be having the appearance of Narada Muni in Srimad Bhagavatam. Right now there is this dissatisfaction period of Srila Vyasadeva. He has completed, the whole Veda is divided into 4. The 18 Puranas have been written. The Upanishads have been given. Then Vyasadeva, he feels that yes, the community will be working okay. Because the people in Kali Yuga has less intelligence. They are more and more attached to performing sense gratification, not interested in devotional service. So who's going to sit there and study the Veda? So complex, so complicated. Even in the previous times, not everybody was able to study the complete Veda. Somebody who would finish the Veda was considered very, very glorious. So Vyasadeva, he divided the Vedas into 4. He made the verses section separate, he made the music section separate. Then he put the Dharma Shastras separate. He put everything else, like weaponry, medicine, all those things, he made it separate. He made it 4. So what do you want, you can get it easily. Then he gave the Puranas, the examples of people who follow the Veda. So it becomes easier for us to understand how one should live life according to the Vedic principle. And then he was still not convinced. Says the people are even more dumb in Kali Yuga. They won't get it. So then he wrote Mahabharata, which is, lots of stories involved. There is Krishna Katha involved. Devotees, how they will perform, Vedics, live according to the Vedic lifestyle. And he made it so simple. And he gives classes of 3 categories of people. There are women, Shudras, and Dvijabandhus. Dvijabandhu means they are Brahman, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. They have taken birth in their families. But they are not able to follow the culture. They are unable to live up to the lifestyle. So they are basically useless people in those 3 varnas. They are called Dvijabandhus, friends of the twice born. So for them, then he gave Mahabharata. Mahabharata is considered as the 5th Veda. And Srila Prabhupada, I think previously he mentions that in this age, in the previous verse it says, in this age, Mahabharata is more essential than the original Veda. But still he is not satisfied. Still he's thinking, there is missing. There is something missing. I don't get it. I'm not fully satisfied. I'm not relishing it. All this great endeavor is not complete yet. There is something missing. But I know everything about the Veda. He says, I am feeling incomplete, though I myself am fully equipped with everything. I have all the paraphernalia with me. I know how to use it, but I'm not satisfied. Now that pinch of salt is missing in the sabji. Without salt, the sabji doesn't taste good. Even though you have cut the vegetables, you have cooked it, you have boiled it, you have put all the different spices inside. The color looks really nice. Everything is there, but the essence, the salt is missing. The salt is there, but hasn't applied it. So he's wondering, what is required to be done? So Srila Prabhupada, he says, purification of the living being submerged in matter is made possible by the prescribed activities in the Vedas. If somebody is so much into sense gratification, he's submerged. Submerged means he's above the water is above his head. It's not ankle deep, waist deep, neck deep. No, he's submerged in. He's thinking of matter because the world is matter. It's all the place he's looking for sense gratification. Every moment, he's submerged in it. His purification is only possible by the prescribed activities in the Vedas. Now Srimad Bhagavatam gives about every example of every situation possible for us to learn from. And there is one particular pastime which describes about somebody who was submerged in matter. Anybody can think about it? It was Maharaj Yayati. Great personality, great king. He got married to the daughter of Shukracharya, Devayani. Now because of some arrangements, she had a maid servant who was the princess. Her name was Sarmishtha. So when Devayani gets married to Maharaj Yayati, Sarmishtha, being a maid servant, even though born in the family of the king of the demons, she goes together with Devayani as her maid. And the arrangement of the material nature of Maya Shakti, Devayani, she had 2 children born from Maharaj Yayati, and Sarmishta had 3, even though she is not supposed to have children. So that made Devayani very, very angry, and she told Shukracharya that my husband is not loyal to me. And Shukracharya gets upset. Why? Because he is also indulged in matter. He's submerged in matter. What he does, okay, become old. Become an old man. If you're an old man, you can't enjoy much. There's a lot of sufferings. There's a lot of physical difficulties. You want to enjoy, but the mind is still working when in your 20s and 30s, but the body is in your 70s, 80s. Become old. Mahajayati is very old. Can't do much. So he asked his 5 sons, please give me your youth. I want to enjoy my senses. Please give me your youth. If you see, according to social customs, what kind of a father? For his personal enjoyment, he's asking the youth of his children. Anyway, one of his sons decided, okay, yeah, sure, you can have my youth and I will take your old age. With that, he enjoys his life for 1,000 years. 1,000 years is enjoying life. But Bhagavatam mentions he performed his sense gratification according to the principles of the Veda. So he did not do anything wrong, anything sinful. He was, whatever is given or prescribed by the Vedas, that sense gratification he indulged in. And because, as Srila Prabhupada says it here, that the purification can happen, made possible by the prescribed activities in the Veda, after 1,000 years of enjoying life, he comes back to his son and he says, please take back your youth. Because I'm satisfied to understand that there is no satisfaction in the material world. Took a great personality 1,000 years to understand. For people like us, we don't even live for 1,000 years. And neither we are those great personalities. It takes us lifetimes to understand such a thing. And even in that situation, we perform so many activities which are sinful because the mind said so. Now you're going out in the, somewhere traveling, and then you have, there's no place to eat. So you go into a restaurant which is having veg and non-veg together. It's okay. I'm very hungry. We can eat. We'll tell them to change their gloves. The waiter will change his gloves when he's serving us. It doesn't matter if they're using the same vessels for cooking. We make a compromise. Or we have been devotees since my childhood. Let me at least give it a try how alcohol tastes like. I've never tried it. Others, my friends, have done it. Let me at least taste, one sip. I want to taste, I want to try how it tastes like. Gambling, I can earn so much more money, and of course I will give it to the temple because our temple has some difficulties. We all think like that, many times. Let me do something. Why? That's the mind thinking. Let's do something more, which is more tasty. Now, what is this every day getting up for Mangalarti, taking bath in the morning, going for the temple, attending morning program? One day, let's party. But if we don't follow the prescribed activities given in the Vedas, how will we get purified? Srila Prabhupada was kind enough to give us the system with which in one lifetime we can go back to Godhead. The Sri Vaishnavas, they say, if you follow the system, the Varnashram system perfectly for 100 lifetimes, then you are eligible to go to Vaikuntha. Very easy. 100 lifetimes perfectly following Varnashram. The Madhvas, they say, you take 14, at least minimum 14 lives. You perform devotional service here, then you go to the heavenly planets and you perform devotional service there, and then you keep on going higher and higher and higher till you reach Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma, at the end of his life, when he goes back to Godhead, you can go back to Godhead with him. But what if he doesn't go back to Godhead? Then everybody comes back again in the material world. And they have to try again. And what's the guarantee that when you are up in the heavenly planets, you are going to perform devotional service? There are much more distractions over there than here. That's why devotional service has to be performed with utmost care. Bhagavatam describes devotional service should be performed as if Yamaraj is chasing you with a sword in his hand and you are running to save your life. How focused you will be. With that much focus, you have to perform devotional service. If we do it like that, then we have chance to go back to Godhead. If we are dropping by every second step, very difficult to go back to Godhead. One devotee was mentioning, Prabhupada was asked, will all your disciples go back to Godhead? He said, no, most of them will go to the heavenly planets. Very few will make it back to Godhead. That is our situation. We have to see where we are standing. What is our position? We have to perform everything according to be prescribed according to the Veda. And then Srila Prabhupada says, but the ultimate achievement is different. What do we want to achieve at the end? Unless it is attained, the living being, even though fully equipped, cannot be situated in transcendentally normal stage. Unless you perform devotional service, you can't be on transcendental level. Following the prescribed activities given in the Vedas makes you spiritual. Gives you the path. But you have to take up devotional service to become transcendental. Srila Vyasadeva appeared to have lost the clue and therefore felt dissatisfaction. Of course, he's not going to, completely lose it. As Srila Prabhupada says, he appeared to have lost the clue. And therefore, he felt dissatisfaction. And exactly the same thing Narad Muni will tell him, that you have not given the direct devotional service to Krishna clearly. That's why you are dissatisfied. Mahabharata has 1,000 verses. Out of that, only 25,000 verses are talking about the direct pastimes with the Pandavas. Other 75,000 shlokas are describing other pastimes. Being spoken by different sages, and the sages are talking about some other sage or some another situation in which they are talking about some another situation. It goes down like 8 steps down. And then after explaining all those 8 stories, in depth there, and then they come back again 8 steps, and then they say, and that's why, Vaishampayana Muni, that's what he told, something to Maharaj Yudhishthira. 75,000 shlokas just describing something else that can mislead a person very nicely. And even out of those 25,000, how much is it talking only about just pure devotional service to Krishna? It's very, very few where there is direct interaction with Krishna. And because it's not there, that's why Vyasadeva feels, not satisfied. It's not tasty. The salt is missing. Unless and until a person takes up devotional service, he cannot be fully satisfied. And that's why Srila Prabhupada gave us this whole system. The morning program, Bhagavatam class, evening Bhagavad Gita class. At one point even Chanakya Pandit says, a wise man, in the morning, he should talk about thief. At noon, he should talk about fights. And at night, he should talk about women. What? No, but what he's talking about, in morning, you should talk about the thief, who is Krishna as Makhanchor. At noon, you should talk about wars, that's Ramayan. And at night, he should talk about women, that's Mahabharata. If you study that, then you become greatly learned. But the way how it is written, it's pure sense gratification right there. It's sinful. That's why we need to study Srimad Bhagavatam. That will bring us to the spiritual platform. And that can take us back to Godhead in one lifetime. Other distractions, there are so many, multiple. Can completely get lost in what's going on in this world. Even in Mayapur, being such a small place, very easy to get lost. But if we stick to devotional service, nowadays they have so many different kirtan parties going in different areas of Mayapur and performing kirtan. And in one area they are not allowed to come because it disturbs the children and their classes and education. So they said, please, don't come around in this area. So they go everywhere else and then don't go to that particular area. But this is Mayapur. It's a place of kirtan. And kirtan is the best way to go back to Godhead. You talk about Krishna, you think about Krishna, you glorify Krishna, you sing, you dance. There was in Mumbai, there was one devotee was preaching. And he said, why don't you come to the temple on Sunday? We have a nice Sunday program. And he says, no, I have to go. I have a different schedule. I says, what's your schedule? He says, I will be going to RG Disco. I'll be going to RG Disco. He says, okay, you go there every week. Why don't you come to the temple? He says, I will take you to the RG Disco. Let's go together. I was like, what? He said, yeah. And he brought him to the temple. And over there, they had a good kirtan, good lecture, nice prasadam. And he says, but you told me you will bring me to RG Disco. I said, yeah, Radha Gopinath Disco. He brought him to Radha Gopinath temple. And at the end of the program, he said, this is much better than the disco. Why? Because this is transcendental. It takes you beyond everything. That person became a devotee. In that one day, gave up all his sinful activities. Just one day of devotional service. In fact, that is, they say, Lava matra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy. Lava means the time of lava is the 16th part of a blink of an eye. That much period is called lava. And there is a very nice pastime of Narada Muni in this connection. Narada Muni was traveling around and he saw this person extremely sinful, has not done anything pious. He came up to in front of him and he said, when you go to the hellish planets, they will ask you if you have done anything pious. You tell him that I have taken darshan of a pure devotee. And Narad Muni disappeared. Eventually the person died. He was taken to the hellish planets. Yamaraj is sitting there. So, have you done anything pious in your life? And he's like, well, thinking, what I have done. Finally, he remembers the instruction of Narada Muni. And he said, yeah, I have taken darshan of a great devotee of Krishna. Says, ask Chitragupta, whose darshan did he take? So he took darshan of Narada Muni. He says, okay, go back to the earth planet and perform devotional service. Don't do anything, don't make the same mistake again. Just by taking darshan of Narada Muni, the person got rid of all his sinful activities. And was given a chance to go back to the planet Earth and perform devotional service. Just he looked at Narada Muni. The devotees, when they go out preaching, Srila Prabhupada, he preferred devotees going out preaching in devotional clothes. Just by you see the person, immediately reminds you, oh, Hare Krishnas. Just when you're walking down the road, people think, oh, Hare Krishnas. Sometimes they even, to harass you, say, hey, Hare Krishnas. But in that way, you made them chant the holy name of the Lord. Bhagavatam says the holy name chanted in any situation, out of anger, out of joke, by mistake, In any situation, the holy name chanted gives a lot of transcendental benefit. What to talk about when it's consciously taken to please Krishna? So, we should not feel embarrassed to go out in devotional clothes. When I go to Krishnanagar or Kolkata, I wear my t-shirt and pant. I don't want to look like a devotee. I wear a hat, so nobody sees that I'm shaved head. I have a shikha. I feel comfortable. Go. Do something, beneficial for them. It's good for them. It makes them come closer to Krishna. Every moment, everything that you do can bring somebody closer to Krishna. Many times it happens when somebody is dying. There was an incident of a person. He met one devotee, and the devotee said, "You are performing sinful activities. If you continue to perform sinful activities, you will die while rotting in bed, and nobody, none of your family members will be around you." And he didn't care. He had enough money. He was enjoying life. But it did happen. When it came that he was about to die, none of his family members were around him. And because he was just lying down continuously in bed for days, he got this thing called bed sores. And his body is rotting. And he's dying. That time, he had one of his friends over there. And he said, "Yes, I remember 15 years ago, I met this devotee and he told me that this is how I will die. Please find this devotee from wherever he is. He came from an ISKCON temple. Please find him." So though his friend went, found the devotee. He asked him, "Please come. The person is dying. He's thinking of you. Please come." The devotee went and he says, "Please help me. Save me. I'm dying. I'm rotting. I'm dying. Save me." The devotee says, "The only option you have is to chant Hare Krishna. Promise that till you die, you will chant 16 rounds every day." He said, "I promise. I'll promise I'll chant 16 rounds every day." And the person, the way how he died was he was chanting his japa. He pulled out the 16th bead, from the Sakshi Mala, that yes, I have completed my 16 rounds. Once he did that, he left his body. He lived his life in a sinful way. But because he had an interaction with the devotee helped him die in a nice transcendental situation. He finished his 16 rounds. He finished his promise. He kept his promise. Of course, it was the next day when he died. But chanting the holy name can protect you from the greatest of all dangers. He saw some devotee. He's dying. The devotee is in front of him. His family members couldn't make it. All his kids were, in Western countries making big money, all extremely rich. But when he's dying, he's surrounded with no one, with the exception of his friend and this devotee. And he chanted his 16 rounds, left his body. That is the glory of performing devotional service. Even for a moment, you perform devotional service, it's great achievements. And the activities prescribed in the Vedas, they are supportive to the devotional service. It is confirmed by the conch blowing. It's supportive. If you don't perform activities which are prescribed in the Vedas, that means it's sinful. It's not supportive. You perform activities prescribed in the Vedas, it's supportive, you move forward. And at the end of the life, you go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. Anybody has any questions or comments? Yes, bro.
So, Hare Krishna Prabhu, nice introduction, Prabhu. Prabhu, Vyasadeva is the incarnation of Lord Narayana and Krishna Bhagavan. His authorized incarnation, Vyasadeva.
Yes.
Initially, he wrote 4 Vedas.
Yes.
So, when Narada Muni meet Vyasadeva, when Vyasadeva regretted his defects, when Narada Muni met Vyasadeva, he regretted his defects. Why Lord Krishna itself Vyasadeva? Then where is the question of defects and why, how he missed the main cream of subsequently, yes.
Vyasadeva is an incarnation of the Lord. Huh? That's the question.
Yes.
That Vyasadeva is the incarnation of Lord. But when Narada Muni meets him, he's saying that I'm dissatisfied and I have these problems and defects. And Narada Muni is pointing out you haven't done this and that's why you're not satisfied. So how can Krishna have defects in the form of Vyasadeva? See, Vyasadeva is his name is Dvaipayana. The position is that of Vyasadeva. Any jiva can become Vyasadeva. For example, in the next millennium, this millennium's Ashwathama will become next Vyasadeva. So not that every time Krishna appears as Vyasadeva, but he has to perform pastimes. Krishna, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Krishna, went and studied under Sandipani Muni. Why does he require a teacher? Right? Sandipani Muni taught him. Of course, he was there for just a very small period of time. But he went to Gurukul. He paid obeisances to his teachers, to his parents. He got caught by Mother Yashoda, got bound up to this, mortar. He was chastised. The cowherd boys would sit on his shoulders and tell him, you are lost. How can Krishna lose, in front of some people? But he was lost in his wrestling with his friends. And as the rules, he had to carry his friends and run all the way to Yamuna. He had to go around tending cows. Why the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who by the blink of his eye can do anything he wants. But he performs these pastimes. He's glorifying Narada Muni. You tell me what I should do. Because you are my guru. You tell me what I should do. So Krishna lives like that. But not necessarily every time Krishna will appear as Vyasadeva. Sometimes it could be some jivas. Is it okay, bro? Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for the class. Prabhuji, there are 2 parts to my question. The first part is, can you please elaborate on these words, transcendently normal stage? Like, what does it mean, like transcendently normal stage?
And you have a second part to the question?
Second part of the question is that, as I was thinking of this answer, maybe Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, maybe transcendently normal stage. So, but when we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, so then sometimes due to the intelligence being absorbed in the matter, the way Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is exhibiting his pastimes in the Antalila and also in the Rath Yatra pastimes, sometimes all this Ashtasattvik Bhav is appearing, the bodily transformations are happening.
But that's not normal.
So it appears like this love of Godhead is like, that sometimes the blood is coming, sometimes the foam is coming after the mouth. What is the love of Godhead? No,
that's special. That's not normal. Transcendentally normal stage is, Prahlad Maharaj says, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu Vismartavya Na Jatuchit. Always remember Krishna, never forget him. That's transcendentally normal. When you are on that level, then you keep on going further and further, and what Mahaprabhu showed is the Mahabhava. That's not normal. That's something extremely special. Yeah. So transcendentally normal would be you always remember Krishna and you never forget him. Everything you want to do, you try to connect it to Krishna. That is transcendentally normal. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, you mentioned that following the Vedas, person becomes spiritual, but performing the bhakti, person become transcendental. Could you elaborate what is the difference? Because like for me, it's like synonyms.
Being spiritual means you are doing things which are pious. Piety takes predominance. You feed, you feed an hungry person, or you are chanting Hare Krishna, but you are not. You're doing it because it's nice, but you don't have an idea to go back to Godhead. When you have the idea you want to go back to Godhead and then you chant Hare Krishna, that is transcendental. You're being nice, you're being spiritual, you read Bhagavatam, but you are not very, you are attached to your existence in the material world. Transcendental is beyond the material world. Would that be considered as an okay, Prabhuji? Sorry, Prabhu?
That's what in modern they call being spiritual. It means connected. That means the connecting things with not too material.
Yeah.
That's a you hear the word. It's a common word now. It's being spiritual.
So how would you define spiritual and transcendental?
It's a commonly used word now. Being spiritual.
Uh-huh.
I prefer. I'm rather spiritual kind of thing. It's a modern thing, but it means seeing everything a little differently, even like in the mode of goodness and things that they
being pious.
Yeah, more pious.
Yeah.
But transcendental and spiritual, I wouldn't say there's much. Real spiritual and transcendence is on the spiritual platform. So, but the terminology that you're explaining is okay.
It's okay. Okay.
But it's more or less the same thing.
Is that okay? Anything else? Yes, Prabhu.
In ISKCON, I was thinking to myself, if Srila Prabhupada lived longer, if he lived longer, 20 years, 30 years, which books would he have continued to translate? Would he have translated? How would he have? What would he have done? If he had lived much, much longer, because it was a very short period of time, that he came here. So I was thinking, is there circles in ISKCON in the world? Like there's a circle, like you say, this is Mayapur. Inside Mayapur, these books are more relevant. Inside Europe, maybe these are in our greater world. These books are more relevant. Is this true or?
Well, what I see, there are two parts of your questions. One is what books Srila Prabhupada would have translated if he would have lived longer, and second part is in the different parts of the world which books are more relevant. So they're being connected, but they're still the answers would be different, because I did hear from Srila Prabhupada disciples that Srila Prabhupada had the desire to translate also Chaitanya Bhagavat. He wanted to translate Ramayana and some of the Puranas, like Padma Puran, Skanda Puran, he wanted to translate. I have heard this from some Prabhupada disciples. So that's the first part of the question. The second part would be what, if you're living in Mayapur, which book is more relevant? If you're living in Europe, what would be more relevant? No, it would be always the books like Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. They are universal. It doesn't matter where you live, because it's directly, speaking about your connection with Krishna. Bhagavad Gita tells you how to live life. What are the things you should avoid? What are the things you should accept? Don't think yourself to be this body because you are the jiva. And Bhagavatam says, jiva is the transcendental particle of Krishna. So how, being jiva, you serve Krishna? So, and any of Srila Prabhupada's books, they are all directly related to everybody in the whole world. In fact, even beyond.
Okay, maybe I put it another way. Okay, we say Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam all the time. Yeah, this is what you're saying. But then let's say the audience, we use these books, but then can we use these books to deliver a different lecture to a different audience? Are there circles within circles that...
That will always be there, Prabhu. Like, some time ago, Pankajani Prabhu was giving lectures on Chaitanya Bhagavat. He was giving to devotees. It was open, anybody could go there and do it. But the basic always remains as Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. That's what Prabhupada established. It's your basics. You have that. It's your basic. It's your midstream. It's your ultimate. It gives you everything. All details are there. And beyond that, if you want to study other books, Srila Prabhupada has written many more. Or if some devotees get interested and they want to study, let's say Rig Veda. But you have to look and study Rig Veda through how Srila Prabhupada would teach. You want to study the Shara Sandarbhas, you go through how Srila Prabhupada would teach. That's why you don't dive into these books unless you have thoroughly studied Srila Prabhupada books. Not read Prabhupada's book, studied Prabhupada books. So once you study Prabhupada books thoroughly, you understand his mood. That's why when you're doing your Bhakti Shastri and Bhakti Vaibhava, one of the aspects is called Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission. And then you have to write an essay on a particular question according to that topic. So you see what is Srila Prabhupada's mood, what is Srila Prabhupada's mission, and then you can study all those Shastras if you have time and an energy for it, you can study, but through Srila Prabhupada's mood and mission. Would that be okay?
I was talking to one Srila Prabhupada disciple, and he said to me that Srila Prabhupada, he had two parts to his preaching. 1966 to, I don't know, like something he said, up to 71 or something like that. But then he went into a mission mode. At some point he went into a mission mode, and his earlier years, his style was different to the second part of his preaching. There was two parts to it, but maybe you could. Is this?
I've also heard from different disciples of Srila Prabhupada that in the beginning, the idea was more, like the Bhagavat Marg. You study Bhagavatam, you chant japa, and basically that's it. But then there was more requirements. So Srila Prabhupada introduced deity worship. Even for Mayapur here, his original plan was that if you look at from the bird's view, you see a huge magnificent temple and a forest around it. Devotees would get some land, they would have cows, they would live in simple huts. And the devotee said, Srila Prabhupada, sorry, we can't live like this. And then Srila Prabhupada said, then make a city like Dwarka. So then, that's what the endeavor is being made. Making a beautiful city like Dwarika, where it has fountains, had big long roads, nice buildings. So that is the idea. So I'm sure there were things like that Srila Prabhupada, he according to the time, place, circumstances, persons, he said specific things, what to do. Recently we were reading some letter by Srila Prabhupada, and in one letter he is saying that since you are always absorbed in Krishna consciousness, he's telling to one particular devotee, he's saying you're constantly busy in different services and like that, you should try to complete your 16 rounds. He said, you should try. And then there was another devotee who specifically went to Srila Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, I'm so busy, I only sleep for 5 hours a day, I'm always engaged in service, I'm unable to finish my 16 rounds, what should I do? Prabhupada said, sleep less. So it was more specific. So, the main idea is, yena tena prakarena manaha Krishna niveshaya. Do whatever is required, but always have Krishna in your mind and heart. Because we as individuals, we have different anarthas. We want to achieve something. It may be completely useless. But no, we need it. I heard of somebody who bought a second-hand bike from one person for the same amount of money that is required for a new bike. Why he bought it? Because he did not have the money to buy the bike. So he would have taken loan from a bank to buy that bike. And of course that would charge him, so much more. So now he bought the second-hand bike for the price of a new bike, and he can pay it, in over 6 months, 8 months. But now he has the bike. Is it that necessary to have that sporty bike? No, it's my anartha. I want it. Devotees have it. Recently we read a letter from Govinda Mataji. She's writing a letter that is in relation to Matajis and them having their periods. And we are ISKCON devotees, we don't follow it. Even though we are in our periods, we go to the temple programs, even though we are not supposed to. But hey, we are ISKCON devotees, we don't follow. And Prabhupada never emphasized on it, and all those kind of things. And there was this letter from Govinda Mataji in which she says that Prabhupada wanted her to follow it. And he told her what to do, and she told Prabhupada, sorry, I can't do it. And then she says, just if I would have listened to Prabhupada at that time, we would not have this problem now. People now, they go up all the way, behind Radha Madhava or behind Panchatattva, not inside the altar, but in those, dress rooms, to tell something. They go freely. It's sinful, but they will not listen. Because we are ISKCON devotees, we chant Hare Krishna. We don't have to follow the prescribed activities given in the Vedas, because we chant Hare Krishna. We are transcendental. Yeah? Okay. Anything else? Yes, Prabhu.
You mentioned about the glories of the holy name. It's mentioned that when the person is chanting, even to make fun of the devotees' holy name, it means it's namabhas. Does it mean that the person who chanted like this, he's become liberated because namabhas gives the liberation?
Namabhas can bring you up to liberation. So if he continues doing something like that, just making fun and like that. But then you have to see also, depending on the person's nature, his consciousness. He may be just making fun out of being happy, or out of being envious, or some other reason. So all those things, they are considered. Liberation can mean he goes, he's liberated from his sin, his difficulties here and goes to the heavenly planets. It could also mean, just going up to Brahma Jyoti. So those are all liberations. So depending on what's his level, like Krishna with Kamsa, he was envious. He was an enemy to Krishna. He's constantly thinking about Krishna, but he's inimical. Did that take him back to Godhead? He came back as Chandakazi. He became a devotee. Then he goes back to Godhead. Is that okay? Hare Krishna. So we will end here. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, समवेत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि वो।